Ladies, on March 27th at the Golden Gate Club in San Francisco, I invite you to join a room of trailblazers, executives, entrepreneurs, and visionaries who are rewriting the rules of money. Hear from real women who've built wealth through real estate investments, scaling businesses, and creative financial strategies. And learn from industry leaders who have walked the path you're on and who are ready to share their playbooks. You'll engage in intimate panels, fireside conversations, and curated peer-to-peer matchmaking designed to spark meaningful connections. Leave with our wealth creation toolkit packed with actionable resources to help you prioritize your goals and take immediate steps towards financial independence. Now, your journey doesn't end when the day is over. Each of you will be invited to join our online Catalyst community, where you'll be guided through more educational opportunities and times to be able to connect with each other over the course of the next few months. Wealth creation is about opportunity and community. Now, early bird tickets are $9.99 through February 27th. Don't wait. This is your moment to build confidence, community, and wealth. Apply now at women.win and use the code SHAMA25, that's SYAMA25, to get a 25% discount off the early bird price. The Women in Wealth Catalyst Summit, ladies. It's time to redefine wealth and redefine your future. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Are taxes holding back your investment returns? Well, Freck's direct indexing strategies are built for high net worth investors, helping you keep more of what you earn. With daily tax loss harvesting, your portfolio actively works to offset gains and reduce your tax burden. It's sophisticated, tax-efficient investing made simple, with fees starting at just 0.1%. Are you ready to build or preserve your wealth smarter? Visit FREC.com to learn more. Now, investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Brokerage services are provided by Freck Securities, LLC, member FINRA SIPC, and advisory services by affiliate Freck Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Fees vary based on index investment.
Welcome to Getting Rich Together, the show for successful women who are looking to take their financial futures to the next level. I'm your host, Shama Bunton. When I started my wealth building journey, nobody knocked on my door to give me all the answers. So I want to talk to the experts who've done it and bring the answers to you so we can discover the right opportunities that will help us achieve the financial futures we've always dreamed of together and have fun doing it. So let's dive into this episode and start getting rich together. I am here with the brilliant and incredible Heather Udo. Heather, you are not just an incredible entrepreneur who's been at the helm of your business now, Shoppable, for nearly 15 years, but you have a US patent, which is so incredible. You're coaching first-time founders, and you have been consistently breaking ceilings and really being at the forefront of creation. And I am so excited to have you and your story here today on Getting Rich Together. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to have this conversation.
Wonderful. Well, we're not going to jump right in to what it was like to file and get a US patent and all of the incredible things that have been going on today. We're going to start from a much younger place. We're going to start from Heather, somewhere between the ages of 8 and 12 years old. Darling, what was life like for you? Where were you living? What were your parents like? And most importantly, what was money like? What were some of the early money stories?
So I grew up in a town called Crosse, Wisconsin, basically outside the city. And although I was a 5-minute drive from the city, we grew up on 10 acres and had only one neighbor. And I'm kind of a product of two parents that are very different when it comes to money and like how they think about it. So my mother's a social worker, I never saw her buy anything. Like in my life, I can't think of any time I've actually seen her buy something for herself. Just doesn't spend money. And she was just very, very careful with every penny, everything like that. And really thought about money as, did talk about it a lot, but was more thinking about like how you could help other people and what could you do for other people. That was just her personality and who or is her personality, who she is. And then my father is an attorney. I've come to realize I didn't think about it in the early days, but also an entrepreneur. He built his own firm and brought in a lot of other attorneys and staff and is an entrepreneur as well. And my dad is, also very cautious with money. He did not come from money. He's really self-made. He loves nice things, So I'm one of 8 children. So huge family, but it's interesting being a child of parents that kind of are very different when the way that they think about money.
Wow. Which child are you? Which one in the 8?
So technically I'm 4 in the 4 out of the 8. Yeah.
That is wild. And so as being kind of smack dab in the middle, Heather, and growing up, obviously things are different. And so as you were seeing your father like nice things and your mother say, that's really not for me, where did you sort of find yourself in early childhood? Was it, I want to go get a part-time job so I can go have all the nice things? Or was it, hey, like these things aren't for me and I'm going to just, put my heads down, play with my friends and have my school cap on?
It's more of the former, honestly. I was more the very determined individual that had always had a plan, always had something that I was working towards. And I think that kind of made me want to, to work and understand money too, kind of coming from that perspective and understand kind of the value of it. So, I'll tell you a funny story about related to money and how my dad thought or saw that I saw money. So we'd go on a ski trip someplace in Colorado, usually once a year. That'd be our family vacation. And every year we'd go and my dad would take us, or my parents, but it's usually my dad because he's the one that was you can choose something in the store as a souvenir. And usually people would choose a t-shirt that said, Beaver Creek or Snowmass or something. And one year we went in the store and I chose I pointed to I don't know if it was a fur hat or fur boots or something crazy, which now I'm oh my God, who was this little girl? But whatever it was probably the most expensive thing in the store. And I will never forget, my dad looked at me and he said, "You have very expensive taste, young lady." And he said, "Whatever you do for work, you better pay you very well." And I just settled. I was just okay, I've got to do something that is going to earn me a lot of money because I want to be able to spend based on what you want. You don't want to have that. I don't want to have that barrier. I love how he worded it because I know other young women get told other things about money. And I love that my dad said, "You better get a job or create a job that is going to pay you really well."
That's so incredible. And at that age, had you realized that your father was an entrepreneur? Or was it just daddy goes to work?
At that age, I hadn't. I didn't know I had never heard of the word entrepreneur. I didn't think about him as being a business owner even at that point in time. And I think, for a while he was an attorney at someone else's law firm, but even when he started his own, it did cross my mind.
Wow, that's so wild. Okay, so Heather in high school. So talk to me about Heather, money, and high school. Talk to me about any part-time jobs. What did you use the money for when you got those part-time jobs? How did you start to think about some little bits of financial independence? Because I imagine with eight kids, 8 siblings, it's, you have to, I come from a family of 2 siblings, but my imagination is one that you would have to go after what you want in a way that is a lot more poignant, determined, etc.
Yeah, I think it's true because being one of 8, some people think, have one idea that you're getting a lot of attention and everybody's, kind of included within a certain thing. But because we're one of 8, we're all very independent and very much, you have to, because there's so many, you have to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and that you have your, in some respects, I have great parents, but in some respects, kind of taking care of yourself from a perspective of thinking about your, those individual goals. So financially and in high school. So at this point, I knew I was an entrepreneur. So we just rewind briefly to like 11-ish, my parents had given us like 50 cents a week for chores. And like I said, I grew up on 10 acres, a hobby farm. Like I shoveled manure, like from the horse barn, helped put up fences, like a lot of manual labor. I helped my dad cut down trees, a lot of things. At the end of each week, we got like 50 cents of an allowance. So it did not go very far, even in the 80s and very early 90s. But that meant my parents had said, like, look, they've got 8 kids, they've got a lot of expenses, and they wanted to help teach us the value of money. So essentially they said, if you need more than whatever that 50 cents is, you got to figure it out. And because we grew up in the country, there was no neighbors. We attempted a lemonade stand for one day. But I realized, I joked that I realized the importance of location with your business because no one came by and wanted lemonade. We had 2 customers that were bikers, mountain bikers, that wanted water because they were exercising. They're like, I'll pay you for water. So we had the wrong product in the wrong location. But anyway, fast forward to like 11, 12, eBay came online and AOL was really big. I set that up for my household. And I was one of quite a few like 12-year-olds that were flipping products on eBay, setting up an early arbitrage. So that's kind of what got me first started.
Hold on.
Yeah.
So early arbitrage, eBay, young child, let's talk, just double click for a second on the logistics. So obviously eBay, you have to go ship the thing, right? Like you need postage, you need to ship it. I mean, we're talking like a whole, there's logistics involved. It's not, buying and selling a digital product here, right?
Right. You're right.
So how did you also convince adult to support you in this business model? And this is like probably your very first pitch here. How did you pitch this? What happened?
You're so right. It's funny. So my sweet mom had no idea what I was up to. I just kept having to go because I went to this gift shop that was downtown. So every time she had to go somewhere, I'd ask to come with and I'd try to help her with whatever she needed. And then, can I just run in this gift shop real quick? She's like, okay, fine. She waited in the car. She didn't know what I was doing. I was going in to look for the ugliest Beanie Babies that I knew were going to be worth the most money on eBay. And then, I'd ask her to drop me off at the post office. I get with everything packed and sent out. But after I think 3 or 4 visits to the post office, eventually she's like, Heather, why do you keep needing to go to the post office? What is it that you're doing?
Oh my God, that is so hilarious. And then also with eBay, it's not as if you can print the money out. The money goes into an escrow account and then it needs to get transferred. So how on earth did you retrieve the money at that age?
Yeah. So luckily my parents had set up a savings account for all of the kids, I think when we were maybe 10 or something around that age, and just put I don't remember, maybe $100 in everybody's savings account just to create an account and give us that idea that you should be saving. There was no concept of a checking account or anything like that. But the post office, small town, was around the corner from the bank, so I could run over there and deposit what I needed to into my savings account. I made it work kind of quietly at first because it was funny because I felt like I was almost doing something illegal because I was so young that I was just oh my gosh, I'm going to get caught. But you're not doing anything.
I love that. So at this very young age, you are already pushing limits here and you were already seeking what's more, and you're already trying to advance in ways that most young people, I'd have to say, lemonade stand, yes. Arbitrage on eBay, not a really common story, right? So you're already trying out new and exciting things. Let's talk to me about moving through high school, moving into university. Were you already high school, university going, you know what? eBay gig. I really liked that. And I want to go out and strike out and find something on my own. Or were you thinking a little bit more in terms of the safety zones? All right, I'm going to get a job in something that feels more comfortable, more safe. What was going on in your mind then? And how did you start to navigate teenage university years?
Yeah. So once I hit kind of that teenage year, and having a car gave me more freedom to be able to do things. But I think it made me kind of turn to try to go a more traditional, like expected path. So, things, I had summer jobs like lifeguarding and things like that. But I immediately, because that allowed me to get a job at 14 or 15. I can't remember what the legal like working age was at the time. But so I got a job right away. And then I started working at the mall at a store out there, which was great until I hit a ceiling. And this kind of became a theme in my life, is like trying to go the quote unquote normal kind of expected path just didn't work for me. And I was working at a retail store. I won't say who it was, but I was working at a retail store, and the manager of the store wanted to promote me to be the assistant manager. I think I was 16. And she said that she tried talking to corporate and they wouldn't let her. And she said that I can't recall if I had to have, she said that corporate had a requirement for assistant managers and managers that you have to have a high school diploma or a college degree. I can't remember which it was at the time. But she said, basically, it's BS because you're already doing everything but turning the key at the end of the night. You're already dropping off the money, you're counting the money, you're doing everything else that the store needs. But she's like, it's just BS. There's nothing I can do. My hands are tied. I want to give you the job, but that's it. So I realized that was kind of the first realization of that sometimes if you're going, through a traditional path or a path that someone else is controlling, you might hit these artificial ceilings that are there for whatever BS reason that they think you have to have whatever. And it's not about your skills.
That must have infuriated you. I mean, to feel and to know how smart you are, competent, capable, and then to find out that there are these somewhat feeling arbitrary rules around that. I mean, from the perspective also being a young woman, it's like, hey, like what gives, like how am I supposed to catch a break if the systems are not designed around performance or meritocracy or, sort of whatever the nature might be. That is infuriating. Okay. And meanwhile, just to highlight here, you're still earning income and throwing it into your savings account. So here you are as a young woman who's already building up a little bit of a nest egg for herself by virtue of hard work and starting to see sort of what those results were. As you were moving yourself into the university years, did you find yourself, going, oh, I have this money saved. I'm going to go and spend it on something special that I want? Or was it a little bit more of I'm saving for this thing in the future that I don't yet know what it looks like?
Yeah. So the first thing that I spent money on, and now here's where my mom's influence came in. The first thing that I spent money on that I can recall was I met this woman who owned an orphanage in Haiti and really needed help. And she was in the community that I came from and just said, I'm just don't know what to do. I just really need help. Like there's so many orphans that, and this and that, and we just don't have the funds to support them. And she was living in Wisconsin, but her partner was based in Haiti. And so I helped organize like this local run walk fundraiser for her. And then she invited me to come, but I remember it cost $500 and it was like the flight. And then I had to stay overnight one night in Miami or whatever. But regardless, the cost was $500. This was right before college. And I talked to my parents, and this is kind of a life lesson for money. And I'm taking it into my kids too, but if it's your money, you can spend it how you want. So my dad's like, I've never been to Haiti. I don't know. I don't know, what it's like there. I don't know how safe it is. The CIA website says it's not very safe right now. There's an election. There's all this stuff going on. But at the end of the day, if it's your money, you can do what you want. And I can't tell you how to spend your money. So if that's your decision, you have enough to go, you can go. Well, he didn't think I had enough to go. So he was surprised when I said, okay, well, I've got to go get a checkbook, or something, and I'll go. So that was the first big home I spent money on.
How empowering. What an incredible moment to say, I can change my own life. And I can also change other people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do this at a young age. And this little thing here called money is a great enabler for me to be able to exercise and flex your power, your independence, your values, your vision. I mean, I would call that a really incredible early on memory of being able to say, all right, let's do this, all right, life, let's create.
Yeah.
So what sort of informed you through university then on what to study, and how did you start to get ready for your young career out in the world? Obviously going to university is so fun because you get to meet all these new people and you get to go to different cities and have all these different experiences. What sort of informed your decisions of what to study, where to study, and how you're going to start to build your early career?
Yeah. So I knew it was very clear to me that I wanted to go into business and I wanted to go all the way. I wanted to run a company, start a company. I wanted to do, I just knew that I wanted to do that at that point in time. And I think it was kind of, through that path that I'd already taken. So it was very easy decision for me to have a business major. And then, the other piece was, as far as location, I felt very strongly that I wanted to move to a location that had more opportunities. And for me, I was kind of looking at Boston, New York, and San Francisco. And I ended up going to university in San Francisco, which obviously, being a tech entrepreneur now, further put more impression on me and in that journey, being able to take entrepreneurship classes. And my entrepreneurship teacher was also working at Microsoft as an executive there. So it's just being able to be exposed to so much in the tech community while I was going to school in San Francisco. It really did start to open up those doors just by nature of being in that city.
Wow. And so, when you were then graduating and starting to figure out the early, next steps, right? Where am I going to be? How do I sort of look at salary negotiations, sectors, all of that? It feels like you are at this point informed and connected and sort of have this purview of the world that's all right, again, it's game time. So talk to me about your first few jobs. San Francisco is not a cheap city, it is an expensive city. And certainly as a person who's just making their way into the world, it's even more expensive. So as you were starting to figure out what life was going to be like for you at that point, talk to me about how you were thinking about it. Talk to me about the first few jobs here. Gosh, I'm so excited.
I had many jobs. I hit another kind of ceiling with trying to go back to retail because I liked retail. Now, looking back, I'm in some respects, there were some crazy things about retail, but I liked retail at the time. So I tried to go back to retail. At this point, I had my high school degree, obviously, because I was in college, but I hit another ceiling. Pretty much exact same situation. But this time they're you have to have a college degree for that store in San Francisco to be a manager. And for me, knowing the path that I wanted to go on, I want management experience. I want to learn from someone else how to manage. I want to understand, I want to start to get that. And I've been doing this at that point. I've been already working in retail for 5-6 years, maybe. So I hit another ceiling and then I'm I need to find some place where I can start to learn to manage. So I went and worked at another shop on campus that a Jamba Juice. And then I took an internship with a company called military.com that was founded by Christopher Michael. He had just sold his business to monster.com. And I had met him shortly after he sold it because I was doing an internship there before my senior year. And at that point in time, I sent him an email and I was one of many people. So I'm like, this guy doesn't even know who I am. He probably won't respond to my email, even though I'm like around the corner from him in the same building. But I sent him an email and I just said, I'm very interested in entrepreneurship. Is there any way I could like talk to you for a little while and just kind of, I don't know, hear about your journey? And he said, sure. He set up a meeting. We got a coffee. And then by the end of it, he said, I want you to come. If you're interested, I want you to come work for me. I'm starting a new company.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That is powerful. So had you realized at the time sort of the blessing that was falling into your lap and it was like, lights went off and you jumped at it? Was the salary good? Like, how did you start to think about, saying yes to this and sort of what these steps were like?
I wish I had known immediately what the opportunity was. But again, for me, I was like, at that point in time, it felt like everybody that I knew was like trying to get the job at Google, or I think Yahoo, or whatever else was like, maybe eBay was still during that time, but like, the big tech companies of that year. And when he first extended it to me, I was like, okay, this could be really good, but what if I'm supposed to go to one of these big tech companies first? Like, and how risky is it to be going to a company that is like him? And he's like, I got 2 other executives that are going to start it with me. And I'm like, do you have funding? He's like, no, we don't, but it won't be a problem. I'm like, maybe it will. I don't know. I don't really know this guy. I don't really know. I'm like, if you have no funding right now, you're offering me a job without money. Okay. When does that happen? So it's funny because he's joked since. He's like, you grilled me unlike anybody has ever grilled me when I've offered them a job. But obviously I ended up deciding that I should take that risk and I should go that path. And I'm like, this could be the best opportunity that I could have right now, where no, I'm not going to the big company, but I'm learning with someone that's already created a business and I'm learning from day one with him.
That's powerful. And so the length of time that you were there and certainly ascending and really sort of clear differences here between your previous experiences where it was like, oh, you don't have this and can't make it. And all of a sudden it's like, hey, you're smart, you're dedicated, you want to create, here's the opportunity, go for it. Your ascension and sort of moving up in titles and responsibility is so exciting. Had the experience, and what experiences, I guess, really prepared you for, got you ready then, because you started your business young, and so was it really coming out of that where you said, all right, I feel now ready to start my own company, or were there other dominoes that were at play here that gave you the financial confidence and security and made you feel like, all right, this is the time for me now to step out of still an entrepreneurial world, but to move into your own entrepreneurial world?
The majority of the confidence that I got to create my own came from learning from him and the other executives that were there at the beginning. And, I'd always planned to get a real MBA, but I ended up getting a hands-on MBA, courtesy of those 3 who had a Harvard MBA. One had a Harvard MBA, one had a Stanford MBA, and the other one MIT and Vanderbilt. So they all brought the degrees, and I say that I just kind of siphoned off a lot of lessons learned from startup life from them. But financially, because I was one of the very first employees at that company, I got equity, and I did fully understand equity at that point in time. I mean, I already had stocks and stuff like that, but I hadn't had stock options, and I hadn't fully understood how that worked. But regardless, I had that. So when we ended up exiting, and I almost said Shoppable, when Affinity Labs was a company at the time, was acquired, then, I obviously sold all of my options, and that gave me, the financial opportunity and freedom to do many things. One decision that I made was, okay, I'm going to set part of this aside for my business when I'm ready to start a business.
Oh, that's incredible. And where else did you put the pie? I feel like sometimes there are so many people who are working at startups today who are getting equity and who are wondering, is this ever going to turn into anything? And then when it does turn into something, all of a sudden it's like, sudden wealth, right? Or sudden access to capital that maybe you haven't seen so much at one time, right? Or sort of a new experience. Where did you seek advice and counsel, and how did you decide where to put your money? Where did it go?
Yeah. So obviously the one part was for the business. And then at that point in my life, I was 23, I think, 24, thereabouts. So I needed to, I thought it was really important to pay off all my debt. So I didn't want to have any loans. So I had things like, I made the mistake, and I will say this for people listening, I made the mistake of buying a nice car at 20 something. I bought it was used, but I bought a nice Mini Cooper convertible, which I love that car. But at that age, you shouldn't really, I changed my opinion on it. I shouldn't have spent so much money on a car. But anyway, so one went to paying off my car. I didn't want to have a car payment. And then others went to paying off credit cards and things like that. And being able to have that financial freedom of not having any debt holding me back anymore was really an important thing at that point in time. So I would say that was kind of the other bucket. And then there's a third fun bucket. It's not work and typical financial stuff. The other piece was, which will surprise no one that knows me, but I did buy some nice clothes and shoes and invest in having some great pieces. I wanted to have nice, high quality pieces. And so I had a few trips to Saks Fifth Avenue downtown San Francisco.
Fabulous. And the quote unquote typical things you put money in, did you put the rest of that in terms of, was it, the S&P 500 and a brokerage account? Was your investing sort of prowess at that point, was it pretty conservative in terms of where you parked your money, or did you put your money in any other sort of interesting investing classes?
I would say it's pretty typical. Some funds, S&P, things like that. And then I did do some more risky, individual stock investing and things like that. Some played out very well for me, and some not so much. I had some bad picks on bad solar company and stuff like that I thought were going to be the one, and it didn't.
Wow.
Well, but I think when you're really young, and I think, and how I thought about it as a teenager, and then at that early point in my 20s, is that it's good to make some big bets, because that's the time when you can. And, I made some investments in high school into some stocks and stuff. But I was at the end of the day, what am I going to spend this on? If I don't put it in a stock, it's going to be blowing it at the movies or on clothes at the mall or something else that is just going to have no value anyway. So if the stock has no value, it's no different. If it goes up, it's all upside. So I wanted to be a little bit risky and take some bets at that point in time.
How fun. Okay, so let's talk about building Shoppable. You have been at the helm running this company now for nearly 15 years. You started off somewhere, and obviously it's incredible to hear that you were able to make an investment into yourself and to say, okay, this is going to be capital that I need to start the company. At that point, as you were looking at launching and investing your capital in you and in Shoppable, had you set aside money that was for your personal living expenses plus startup capital for the business? How informed were you about where you would need that capital to go, and how many months of runway had you been able to afford yourself?
So I ended up having about a little over a year, maybe a year and a half of runway. I made the decision to do things a little bit differently too. So I left out of the things I spent money on. I did move to a nice apartment in Soma with a nice view and stuff like that at that point in time. But when I decided I was going to start my business, I still had a very nice corporate salary coming in. And I said, I need to start shifting how I'm thinking about money right now, because I cannot be today or yesterday. I was a 23-year-old with a very nice corporate salary who recently exited a business. But tomorrow I'm going to, meaning soon, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to resign from my job. I'm going to have no income. And I want that to last as long as possible. So I did let that lease go, and I moved across the Golden Gate Bridge, downsized my apartment and my living expenses dramatically. and just cut all unnecessary expenses so I could start to basically live the true entrepreneurial life of the early days. So that's how I first started. And I think it's important for people to prepare financially in as much as you can before you start your business, but also before you leave your career. Sometimes people don't have that choice because they might get swept into layoffs or something else. But when you can, make those moves before.
I love that. Fantastic advice. So Heather, through the ups and downs, and looking at sort of marrying the ups and downs of starting a company, right? And sort of now all of a sudden it moves from this need to needing to invest in the business to all of a sudden you become a company of more than one person. Now you start to become responsible for other people's livelihoods, and certainly cash flows and things like that can be unpredictable in the beginning as you're sort of learning to grow a business. At what point, were you able to really start paying yourself again, and how did you start to think about paying yourself over time? I think that's one of the components that's sometimes not really looked at enough from an entrepreneurial lens, which is, yes, the business requires money, but so do you. So how did you start to earn back a salary?
Such a good question. And I think it's an important question because a lot of people don't talk about it in the entrepreneurial space too, especially those that don't go the big like venture capital route too, or can't, for various reasons. I did not pay myself for way too long, and eventually I started raising a little bit of outside capital on convertible notes. And I didn't fully understand that process at the time, that you could do it on a rolling basis. So for any entrepreneur listening, you can't do it on a rolling basis. You don't need to herd all the cattle at once, which is what I thought I had to do. So it ended up actually costing me some investors because I waited too long to close them. But once I had the funds, it was so important for me to be able to hire other people that I still didn't pay myself, that I put the funds towards hiring the first employees, in really kind of investing in that sense, using that investment to invest further in the company to bring in new people. But meanwhile, I'm dwindling my savings, paying, at this point, I had moved to New York, I should say. So I moved to New York and paying for a New York City apartment and things like that. But I did, eventually start paying myself. And I remember when I first tried to pay myself, I actually was being denied by the payroll company because they called me and they said, this is below minimum wage. Like on the salary I tried to input for myself, they're like, you can't pay yourself that little. It's not legal. I'm like, okay. So so I had to decide, like, do I just not pay myself a little bit longer to stretch out burn until I could start paying myself again. But yeah, I think it's a struggle, and it is something that you have to be conscious of as a business owner, because you yourself obviously have expenses and things that you need to provide for. So I think a lot of us, myself included, don't pay ourselves the right, like the amount that you should be, even once you can start to afford it. Because, and it's one of those things that part of it is, I think, this perception of the poor entrepreneur, that you are supposed to be kind of in a little bit of financial pain to like struggle through, you're supposed to put everything, you bet everything on the business. And what I learned over time is if I'm struggling to like pay my own bills, to pay rent and some of those basic things, then you're being distracted from the business trying to figure that out. And it can end up costing the business more. So you have to find that right sweet spot.
That's so cool. It's so powerful and so incredible. And I feel like I could have you on all day to talk about entrepreneurship specifically and, what it's been like to build this incredible business, moving into family, in the scope of these last 15 years, you got married, you have a family, money is different. Expenses are different. It's not just Heather can spend the money however she wants. There are other things to spend money on. So how are you sort of navigating conversations at home around money, making family decisions around what to buy, what's important to us? Your littles are quite little, so I imagine the conversations are quite sitting down at the dinner table, but certainly they are seeing and picking up things around that. So what is sort of the money philosophies that you guys are incorporating?
My husband and I have what we call like a family meeting, and it just works really well for us, where we meet like every couple of weeks and kind of go through what, we are really kind of checking in on our goals, like individual goals, our goals for our family, where we want to go, and then what that means financially. And sometimes that might mean that we're, discussing how we're thinking about a certain goal. Like we just purchased a house that's a 1970s mid-century estate property. And as you might imagine, it's a huge project. It had one owner for the last 50 some years and was empty for a year. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. So, now a lot of our conversations are about that, because this is part of our dream that we want to have this type of estate property, and a lot of things here for our business goals, for our personal goals, for our family goals, and with renovations and construction and stuff like that. Obviously, talking budget, talking how are we planning this, how are we thinking it through. But I think for us, the family meeting really helps us kind of stay aligned and, and communicate about money, because we operate as a unit, but we have kept like separate accounts and things like that, which gives us both the ability to feel like we have individuality and freedom, which I think money brings to everybody, part of their mindset. But we come together and like as one in those meetings and figuring out, okay, how are we, what's our plan?
That's incredible. I love that. So Heather, as you, let's say, fast forward your life into the next 60 years, you start to look back on legacy. Obviously children are a big legacy, but we don't know what kids are going to be like, right? So they have their own passions and dreams, and gosh, it's so incredible to be responsible for shaping young lives. As you look at sort of larger legacy and what it is that you're looking to leave impact in on this world, what might that look like for you?
Such a good question. I mean, for me, at this point in time, obviously being able to create like a business, and a profitable business, a business that can be sustaining on its own, what is kind of was one of my very early goals. And being able to reach that and say, this, like, if I'm sleeping, this business is okay, or I can take a vacation and the business is still growing, or it can live out on its own. So that was kind of a big piece of, what I wanted to do, would be able to create something from nothing that is existing and going on its own and supporting other people too. But another piece now, I've recently started coaching first-time entrepreneurs, and I love it. I love it. Like, I work with the most incredible entrepreneurs now, and it's really amazing to be able to help teach them, what I've learned. And there's a lot of tough lessons in entrepreneurship. And there's a lot of things that if I look back, I'm like, God, if I just X, Y, or Z, I probably could have saved a year of like wasteful time and money on my business. And so being able to give back to other entrepreneurs is something that's a big part right now. And then longer term, kind of going back to that experience that I had in Haiti, it was really impactful financially for me too, because obviously visiting the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, it's dramatically different, right? But what I saw is like, there's so many people that need help. And I'm like, what can I do as one person to help them? And what I realized on that point in time too, because I was like, I wanted to call my parents and be like, can you adopt some kids? But what I realized is, in order to really, you can volunteer and you can impact people on a one-to-one basis doing those things. But in order to really make a really big impact, you often need to be able to be financially successful on your own. And like we said, kind of with the entrepreneurship and taking care of your own house in order to be able to provide for your team and your company, I think I think about it, and my husband thinks about it the same way too, is that we want to have part of our legacy be about giving back to other people and helping in different ways. And we're still fine tuning some of those details. But part of our thought has been that in order to do it in a very meaningful way that can live on, we need to wait until the right time. Obviously, at 16 wasn't the right time for me.
Right. Heather, my final two questions are two of my favorites. One is, what are some of the fabulous things that you're enjoying spending your money on? What are some great purchases that you love or experiences?
I mean, most recently, this new house is just like incredible. We're living in the city and now we're an hour outside of the city, and being able to create a home for my family is just so meaningful and so enjoyable. Like being able, we're going to be able to embrace the original like mid-century architecture that is all here, but kind of put our own touches on it and make it our own. So very much enjoying that process. I've been told it will be an up and down process, but right now we're in the high. We just moved in. We're excited about everything. It's all up from here. But that's a big one. Another one is for sure is travel and being able to travel both with my family, and then my best friend and I like to do a girls trip. We don't do it as much as we should, but every few years or something, we'll go somewhere fun together.
I love that. And my last question, Heather, is our audience loves to support the powerful women who are on the show. And we love to be able to be in contribution to the people, the places, the things that you need. What is it that we can do for you? What are you calling in right now? How can we help?
I would love to meet more great first-time entrepreneurs. So if you are one, if you know one, preferably entrepreneurs that are, I would say within the first kind of 3 years of their business, and in tech, even better if they're SaaS, software as a service, but great entrepreneurs. I want to, be able to connect with them, help them where I can, and help them grow their business.
Amazing. Fantastic. Heather, thank you so much for spending your time generously. I feel like there could be a second, a third, a fourth hour on this, just diving more into all the things. But thank you for being here today on Getting Rich Together. You're a gem. I so appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Getting Rich Together. Please take a minute to subscribe. And if you like this episode, I'd love it if you could share it with a friend who is ready to elevate their financial future. Until next time, let's keep getting rich together.